All right, welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we are going to do a reaction to a video by Nonstop. This one is for my boy Steve Nash, a guy who I don't feel gets enough credit. And before you say it in the comments, yes, I know he got 2 MVPs, but everybody says he robbed everybody else of those MVPs. Shaq says he robbed him. Kobe says he robbed him. Well, Kobe doesn't say it, but we all say like Kobe got robbed, and I get it. So like the only 2 things that Nash really accomplished, like big time accomplishments in his career, people say that he didn't earn it. So I wanted to cover him, and because he's one of my favorites of all time. The dude was awesome, cool, chill dude. He worked so hard, and he was a joy. He brought us the most fun time in Phoenix Suns basketball, and I've been watching since I was a child. That was by far the most fun era we've ever had. Way destroys the current era with KD and Book. But anyways, I don't want to make this intro too long. I'm going to leave the link down in the description below for the original video if you want to watch without my commentary. And if you would do me a favor and leave this video a like, I'd really appreciate it. Without further ado, here we go.
He passed like Magic, shot like Curry, and has more MVPs than Shaq and Kobe.
One of the most unselfish
Starts
people.
right
It's never
there.
about him.
He revolutionized the way a point guard plays the game.
He's one of the best point guards we've ever had.
But did Steve Nash really deserve those MVPs? Was he really as good as his highlights?
See, literally right off the bat, that's the narrative surrounding him. I'm curious where this video goes, though.
Nash. Oh, and a shot from Nash.
I see him as like the most
This
unselfish
is the
player
story
ever.
of Steve Nash. He was born in South Africa, but raised in Canada, where he played soccer, basketball, and hockey. So the chances of Steve becoming a basketball player were virtually 0%. While his dad John played soccer professionally, and his mom Jean played pro netball, they never forced Steve into sports, especially not basketball, which Steve first started playing at 12 years old. But even being the MVP of his youth soccer league, immediately after he picked up basketball, Steve was hooked. I remember watching Steve from inside our house while he was shooting hundreds of free throws in the pouring rain. I never worked that hard, said his younger brother Martin, who was a pro.
No wonder why he was shooting in the 90 percentile, free throw percentage-wise, his entire career. Shooting in the rain will do that.
Soccer player. Steve's fanatical love for the game made him
my
a
God,
dominant
look at
force in high school. And as a senior, he averaged 21 points, 9 rebounds, and 11 assists,
Damn,
leading
dude.
his school.
Damn, dude. What? In high school?
21 points, 9 rebounds, and 11 assists.
Dude, he was basically getting a triple-double with 21 points. That early. I didn't realize he excelled that young.
Leading his school to a state title. But when he told his best friends that he wanted to play in the NBA, the only thing he got was laughter. And unfortunately, all the college scouts felt the same. Nash's coach sent out over 30 scholarship applications to U.S. colleges, with highlight reels of Nash's brilliant passes and impeccable shooting. But all positives were trumped by prejudice, because Nash was a white point guard from Canada, and nobody believes that Canadians could play anything other than hockey. However, one college coach eventually did bite and made a trip to Canada to see Nash play. Immediately, Santa Clara coach Dick Davey fell in love with Nash's skills, even though he also said that Steve was the worst defensive player he'd ever seen.
Yeah, he never really got good at defense. That was his that really screwed us in the playoffs every year.
Coach's assessment of Nash turned out to be spot on, because as a freshman, Nash was a lights-out shooter, but he couldn't guard a chair. So Steve didn't get a lot of playing time, and he even contemplated quitting basketball to return to Canada. But thanks to his maniacal work ethic, Nash quickly improved. And as a freshman, he helped Santa Clara to produce the biggest upset of the 1993 NCAA tournament, after they beat the number 2 seeded Arizona. After his sophomore season, Nash played for the Canadian national team in the 1994 World Cup, reaching the biggest turning point of his career thanks to Del Harris.
Wow.
Harris was an experienced coach who won NBA Coach of the Year, but that summer he was working as an advisor to the Canadian Basketball
I didn't know any of this. Damn.
Federation. After one practice, he approached Nash. Steve, you may not know it, but you are already an NBA player, and you have a chance to make a great career. For Nash, it was the biggest injection of self-confidence. So many people told me, come on, when I told them I wanted to play in the NBA. But when somebody from the NBA finally says you can, it means a lot.
I bet.
It means everything.
Yeah, I bet.
In his junior year, Nash averaged 21 points and 6 assists on 45%
Okay. Where's his rebounds at?
And shooting from three. And was named
45% from three. I thought that was just regular field goals. Damn, man. Yeah, his shot was always lights out.
Conference Player of the Year. He wanted to enter the '95 NBA draft, but in everybody's eyes, Nash was still a scrawny white Canadian point guard, and his NBA future was still not certain. And it wasn't until his senior year when Nash dominated against Georgia Tech and their star point guard Stephon Marbury that the whole world finally saw his NBA potential. The Suns liked Nash and viewed him as a great backup for Kevin Johnson. So in the '96 draft, which would prove to be the greatest draft class of all time, Steve Nash was drafted with the 15th overall pick.
I'm hoping that I'm going to start a steady stream of players from Canada into the NBA.
But not everybody was happy with the Suns' draft choice. Phoenix fans booed Nash,
Oh,
feeling
man.
the management wasted a pick on a physically inferior point guard from a weak
Imagine us booing him, and then literally he lit up our stadium for years. We cheered him on. It's funny how that works. Started out rough.
college. And at first, their predictions seemed to be right.
Well, actually, it does make sense, though, because at that point, I believe we had 3 point guards. We had Jay Kidd here, and I think we still had Kevin Johnson. So we just drafted, all of a sudden, a 3rd point guard. So it was weird. I get it.
Steve's rookie year, he averaged just 3 points in garbage time minutes. Then, when the Suns traded for Jason Kidd, it looked like Nash's days in Phoenix were numbered.
Okay, so he was the backup to Kevin Johnson at the time, and then we got Jason Kidd. So yeah, Nash knew his time was up. What are you gonna do against 2 vets like that? Two of the greatest point guards of all time. What's amazing is at one point, my Phoenix Suns had 3 of the greatest point guards of all time sitting on a bench together.
But then Danny Ainge took over, and he wanted to pair Kidd with a great shooter.
I don't play because I'm not good enough. I'm not as good as Kevin Johnson right now or Jason Kidd.
Yeah.
I know I just have to keep improving.
Nash finally saw an increase in playing time, mostly as a shooting guard. He was running off screens and hitting, instantly proving himself as one of the best long-range shooters in the game.
Oh man, him as a shooting guard could have been deadly. Or the style of point guard that Steph Curry plays would be absolutely deadly in today's game. Nash's shot was on point, and then he can take it to the basket. He was a master of floaters, and he'll dish it off whenever. Like one of the greatest passers of all time. I wish I can see him in today's game, because he was like 10 years ahead of his time.
However, the joy was short-lived, because Suns management did not see starter potential in Nash. Phoenix sent Nash to the Mavericks. Nash's arrival in Texas coincided with the arrival of
Yeah,
Dirk Nowitzki,
Dirkie.
and the two of them instantly became best friends.
We both came to a new city. We both lived in the same apartment complex, and we hung out. You know, we didn't really know anyone else.
However, both of them struggled initially, and for 2 years in a row, the Mavs missed the playoffs. Nash's extreme unselfishness was a real problem for the Mavericks, and coach Don Nelson firmly believed that Nash's hesitancy was costing the Mavs wins. Nelson knew that Nash could be one of the NBA's premier shooters, but Steve was a purist. Ever since his soccer days, he always wanted to set up teammates, and Nelson couldn't convince Nash to look for his own shot.
Yeah, Nash recently did an interview, and he said he regrets it because had he known the direction the game was going to go and what a point guard was going to look like in today's game, he would have just shot the ball 10 times more, because he was always the best shooter on the floor, but he was also the point guard, and he was more of a purist with the point guard position, kind of like a John Stockton.
Had a situation where I demanded that he shoot at least 10 times a game. I threatened to fine him if he didn't. Nelson. Then, in 2001, Nash averaged more than 10 field goals per game, finishing the year with 15 points and 7 assists on average. Even more importantly, Dallas made the playoffs for the first time in 11 years, but they would lose to the Spurs in the second round. Over the next 3 years in Dallas, Nash and Nowitzki's two-man game became unstoppable for opposing defenses. Together with Michael Finley, the final piece of their big three.
That's crazy, too, because he was one of the, I don't want to say one of the best, but he was a fantastic Phoenix Sun as well. That's a cool image right there.
Piece of their big three, Dallas had the best offense in the NBA for 3 straight seasons. But in the playoffs, something was always missing. Poor defense, lack of rebounding, a bit of bad luck, and they would always lose before reaching the finals. After his 6th year in Texas, Nash hoped to agree to a long-term contract with Mark Cuban, but that didn't happen because Cuban didn't want to pay big money to a 30-year-old point guard with a bad.
And this is one of whenever Mark Cuban's asked if he has any regrets, this is one of two. The other one was Tyson Chandler, if I'm not mistaken. But he always talks about how he regrets not giving Nash that money because he wonders if he would have kept Nash and Dirk together, how many rings they could have pulled off together.
Back. So Nash returned to Phoenix, where he would team up with the coach who gave him all the freedom to showcase his
He didn't just come back. We our main guys, Stoudemire and who was it? Stoudemire and Marion flew out to go see him and make the proposal to him, basically. Hey, this is the coach we got. This is the system we got. We need you. And it worked out.
Genius. Mike D'Antoni was an offensive mastermind, and he was the first NBA coach to implement a spread pick-and-roll offense. This involved playing with 4 great three-point shooters on the floor, which is normal now, but revolutionary 20 years ago.
I know, imagine that. He was so far ahead of his time.
Suns played the most beautiful basketball in the NBA, with constant movement, dribble handoffs, and lots of shooting.
Bang.
Because they pushed the pace and shot the ball with a lot of time left on the shot clock, they got nicknamed 7 seconds or less Suns.
We played a style that was thought to be revolutionary at the time, but really we should have doubled down. And Mike said this before, we should have played faster, we should have played smaller, we should have shot way more threes.
And while D'Antoni was the mastermind behind this, it was all made possible because of Nash. Nash had 4 attributes that made him the ideal spread pick-and-roll conductor. Great shooting, playmaking, decision-making, and finishing.
Yeah, nobody knew how to guard Nash. You play up on him, and he's going to run the pick and roll on you. You back off him, he ices you from 3. It was messed up, but it was fun. It was fun to be a Suns fan.
To mention that in the history of the NBA, there wasn't a player who had a better one-handed pass than Nash. Most of his passes were one-handed, with either hand. And what made these passes special is the fact that he threw them directly from the hip, without changing the position of his body and the height of the dribble, so the defense didn't have a fraction of a second to react. But that wasn't the only thing that made Nash special. Thanks to his dexterity and footwork that were groomed by years of soccer and jump roping, it was also impossible to knock Nash off balance. There was a legendary story that Nash was able to keep balance while standing on a Pilates ball and simultaneously jump rope like prime Muhammad Ali.
No way.
Steve would excel in any sport that requires hand-eye coordination. Apart from that, I don't think I've seen a basketball player with better balance in my life. D'Antoni. Because of all these attributes and great court vision, Nash became a master of dribble penetration, something he did better than any other point guard in NBA history. Nash was a pioneer of dribble probing, where he would keep his dribble alive in the paint and not immediately take the shot.
Look at that play. Oh my God. I missed this stuff. Look at this. He's going to go ring around the rosy with him.
Of dribble probing, where he would keep his dribble alive in the paint and not immediately take the shot.
He just broke 4 guys. 4 guys. Does not compute. They didn't understand what the hell just happened.
Other point guards, Nash would often maintain his dribble in the paint to extend the period in which he commanded the opponent's attention, which created more opportunities for teammates to spring free. The move became known as Nashing, and it's a legacy of Nash that is now commonly used by players like Steph Curry or Chris Paul. From 2004 to 2010.
Yeah, except for, what's his name? Steph, he does the Nashing with the ball, but Steph has brought it up another level, and he does the Nashing without the ball, running through all these picks nonstop until he finds an opening, and then he just ices you from 3.
He's finished top 2 in the league in offensive rating every season, and Nash led the NBA in assists 5 times. But what was even more impressive than his passing was how insanely efficient Nash was. Between 2006 and 2010, Nash had 4 seasons with 50, 40, 90 shooting splits.
During his prime, he was the best shooter in the league. Just most people don't know it because he didn't shoot enough.
Not including the 2007 season, where he shot 89.9% from the free throw line, meaning that he needed just one more made free throw to make the 50-40-90 club again. Only 10 players in NBA history shot 50-40-90 for the season, but KD and Bird are the only players to do it 2 times, while Nash had 4 such seasons.
Wow, what a stat.
Such phenomenal efficiency, it's a shame that Nash was always so focused about setting up teammates and didn't take more shots.
I was too conservative shooting the ball. Like, I should have walked into way more threes. I should have looked for more threes.
Steve never averaged 20 points per game, which is what probably hurt him and the Suns in the playoffs. In 2005,
It was. There were many times where I just wanted Nash to take over, but and he would sometimes in big games, and he'd start icing threes, but he'd wait too long. It would be more like he's bailing us out. But if he would have kept that kind of consistency going throughout the game, nobody could have stopped us. Nobody could have stopped us.
Phoenix made the conference finals against the Spurs. Stoudemire averaged 37 and 10 in the series, and Nash had 23 plus 10 assists. But Tim Duncan and the Spurs were simply too good on their way to an NBA championship. In 2006, the Suns lost Stoudemire because of a knee injury, and nobody expected them to go far. But Nash led them past Kobe and the Lakers, and then the Clippers to reach another conference finals. But they would only lose again, this time to Nash's best friend, Dirk. In 2007, Amari returned to All-Star form, and this was the Suns' best chance to win it all. After they defeated Kobe again, they met their biggest nemesis, the Spurs.
Oh, man, yeah, this goes rough. Oh, I paused it at a really fucked up time, didn't I? Yeah, this gets bad.
Extremely tough series filled with cheap fouls, elbows to the face, and controversy. Late in Game 4, Spurs Robert Horry.
This. And then our guys get suspended. I still hate this. In fact, no matter, like, I respect the hell out of the Spurs. Right now, they're my favorite organization in the league. At the time, man, I hated the Spurs for a couple of years because of this one. Even though it's not necessarily their fault, it was the refs in the league that made these calls. I hated the damn Spurs for this one. This was cheap. We were going to win.
He knocked Nash into the scorer's table at midcourt and was charged with a flagrant foul and ejected. The Suns won 104-98, tying the series at 2-2. Nash played phenomenally and finished the game with 24 points and 15 assists.
The guy was like Rocky Balboa out there, all bandaged up, bleeding. It's a freaking warrior.
The NBA announced that Horry would be suspended for 2 games for the flagrant foul against Nash. But what they also said shocked the Suns and the entire world. Because they left the bench after Horry's foul on Nash, Amari Stoudemire and Boris Diaw were also suspended 1 game each.
And the messed up thing is Amari was actually, he went to go check on Nash. That was the biggest one. That one really hurt. He wasn't going out there to fight. He went to go check on his friend. You know, because it looked like Nash was going to be unconscious from that. And then we get punished.
The lesser offense, the Suns lost 2 players and the Spurs lost 1.
Yeah. What was unfortunate about both of them is that I think that Amari and Boris were more interested in coming to me.
That's what I mean.
Than instigating, right?
San Antonio won Game 5.
Yeah, and for those who don't know who Boris Diaw is, he was our other big guy-ish. But we used him as a big guy because we were playing small ball. So it was Amari and Boris Diaw. So now we got to try and beat the Spurs with no big guy. How the hell were we supposed to pull that off? That was the Spurs. Who's guarding Tim Duncan? You know?
Phoenix 88-85, and then won Game 6 at home to clinch the series.
Man, what a terrible blow.
Yeah.
Rewatching it.
The following year, Phoenix
we still
acquired
feel it.
an aging Shaquille O'Neal.
Here's where it all went to hell.
Last-ditch effort to battle with Duncan, but all this countermeasure did was a gentleman's sweep in the first round versus the Spurs. In 2010, the Suns made another conference finals, but by then they were too old and Nash retired without ever even making the finals, let alone a championship. I should have made Steve shoot more, D'Antoni said years later.
I told Steve Nash, and you should have shot more threes. I should have made you shoot more threes.
Yeah.
D'Antoni was absolutely right, and Nash's career could have been even better if he played in the modern NBA with a ton of three-point shooting. Nash is the second greatest free throw shooter ever at 90.4%, behind only Steph Curry at 90.8%.
Wow.
Behind the arc, Nash shot 42.8%, which is the 11th best mark ever, ahead of Steph, who was
Imagine
number
that. What a shooting percentage.
12, and
Wait,
at 49th
hold on. Sorry, bad time on pause.
best mark ever, ahead of Steph, who was number 12. And
Okay, there's one for the books. He has a higher three-point shooting percentage than Steph Curry. To be fair, Steph takes a lot more of them, and he takes way harder threes. So no matter how I slice it, Steph is still the greatest shooter of all time. There's no doubt in my mind.
At 49% from the field, Steve is one of the rare point guards to ever shoot close to 50%, and he's come closest to shooting 50-40-90 for his entire career. Shaq could have won the MVP in 2005, and Kobe's 35 points per game could have won him the MVP in 2006. But Steve absolutely deserved to win because he was the best shooter and the best passer in the game simultaneously, something that no other player achieved before or since.
All right. Cool vid. I actually learned a lot about his early life, and I'm about to trigger everybody in the comments here. I still stand by it. I think he deserves those MVPs because my point of view, and I got to watch every single game for those years. From my point of view, he was the most valuable player in the league because without him, we sucked. Every time he sat on the bench, we sucked. If he ever had to miss a game, we were terrible. Like we were so. I mean, it's to a detriment because we really relied on him for our offense to do anything. Our offense was stagnant without him. Eventually, we got a dude, Gordon Dragic. We used to call him the Dragon, and he was similar to Nash. So when he came off the bench, the flow would continue. But that was kind of in the later years, so it was, it was a little too late. Shout out to Dragic, though. Dragon was a hell of a player. Just recently retired with Miami. Anyways, everybody, let me know what you think about the video. Did you learn something about Steve Nash? What did you know about Steve Nash? Do you think he's overrated? After watching the video, have you changed your mind a little bit? Let me know down below. Yeah, I don't have much else to say. I do plan on doing more vids on Steve Nash because I just feel happy watching this and remembering all the good times that he brought us here in Arizona. But anyways, I won't hold you guys. Comment down below what you think. Leave the video a like if you could. I'd appreciate it. And subscribe to the channel if you want more content like this. I'll see you all tomorrow in the next one. Peace out.